And we're so looking forward to listening to you, ma'am, and please feel free to sit or stand as you so desire.
I hope nobody minds if I sit and read.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you. I'm so grateful to see an audience which is waiting here early in the morning. And I'm also grateful for the session in music, which reminded us of the multiple colors we must celebrate every day. I thank Janki Devi Memorial College and its History Department for this conference, Embodied Pasts, Performance, Memory and History. My paper will be on, my paper is called Becoming the Body. It's the past in the present. As Dr. Swati has already reminded us that the past is really carried in the present, in the bodies that we carry, regardless of what we want it to be covered with, changed with, and however hard we try. What is this uneasiness in giving the dance bodies differential agencies about interpreting the past or to earn a living, about representing different stakeholders through history, about choosing the way they want to be seen, perceived, and remembered? By now you understand that I'm bringing in my love, hobby, and my expertise, of course passion, but also expertise in dance studies and as an anthropologist into this space. The process of becoming. Dance training starts with the training of the body and the mind. All dancing bodies are created and or crafted. They are bodies that are prepared and trained either intentionally or unintentionally. There could be a differentiation of dancers on the basis of whether he or she is a dancer by choice, by necessity, or by imposition. But whatever is the path for anyone to have become a dancer, he or she first becomes a body during the time of the initiation process and then a dancer. This paper contextualizes these basic facts within a few specific empirical examples. As one of the methodological principles, this research keeps the idea of the relationship between dance, the dancer, and the dancing body at the very center of the arguments. It therefore investigates at one level the choice or lack thereof to have a certain form of engagement with the body through the act of becoming. Dancers trained in specific Indian dance forms, largely considered a hobby or a leisure activity, to the professional dancers who have chosen or been forced to dance in order to earn a living. On the other hand, the parallel methodological endeavor is to identify the function which the dance knowledge or skill or work is put to, principally foregrounding two key functions: as a definable presence for creating an identity, vis-a-vis becoming available as a toolkit that provides an occupation, work, and thereby ensures survival. While dancers of all genders have had their own negotiations with the process of becoming the specific dancing bodies that they have to be in order to begin their own journeys in the world of dance, in this essay I would like to restrict my analysis to only female negotiations. The essay starts with the premise of differential reception and acceptance for dancing and dancing bodies within the Indian dance scene in the contemporary times. It is fairly easy to understand the role of the nation state in shaping the reception of the woman's body. Some bodies are glorified as representation of history and culture, while others are publicly shunned as seeking or providing pleasure or money or both. Historically, most of the patriarchal and conventional caste-based ideas of service in this context, such as the Devadasi system in the temple practices, was the right of the client and the duty of the dancer. It still continues to be named as service, more to appease the conscience of the receiver of such services, as they legitimize the availability and use of the otherwise marginal bodies for the pleasure of upper caste male clients. Thus, the ecology of Indian dance continues to hierarchize dancers. Some of them are glorified as legitimate citizens, while others are discriminated against under more than one marginalities. One becomes multiple bodies. A body that claims history is not necessarily a historical body. It is a body that seeks validation from history. Similarly, a body that represents the tradition through the training of classical dance does not carry only the particular information in it, but also is a body structured in the time it lives. Hence, it is a body living in two times. One part of the bifurcated body lives in the past by virtue of its constant reference to a parampara or a tradition of learning, while having to update itself constantly with the new ways of learning as an individual in a jungle of free-for-all neoliberal knowledge explosion in the time of media wars and related competitive disseminations. Hence, the becoming of a body is a continuous process. On one hand, to be respected for what it carries as signifiers, but also to be kept under watch as it displays different forms of storing of the new times and spaces it chooses or is forced to survive in. Even when a dancing body is creating or representing stories of others through its representative movements, it is telling an autobiography. Hidden in the representation is the body of the dancer itself. In presenting the story, she is living it. She can only embody another character in a manner that she understands the emotions or the movements of the character in the story she is asked to enact. The representation becomes a tale of negotiations, mixed with experiences of preparations, of pain, of hard work, of pleasure, and of course, also of constant suppression of self-expression that is required to tell any story. Hence, all dancing bodies are co-inhabiting the stories they tell, the songs or music they move to, the ritual they partake, and in all this, they learn to hide the pure sense of pleasure, the actual effect of the effort, the sheer joy, and the rush of adrenaline that helps her carry on with this tough tradition. At times, what makes these bodies push away the hopeless tiredness and rise again is purely the need to earn a living and a helpless lack of choice. At most times across genres, it is a journey filled with sheer grit and competitiveness. Most body stories in dance are so similar that they can be devoid of subjective identification in the world of Indian dance. And they often are. While to move at will is an agency they unknowingly exercise, most dancers never consciously think of their agency. And that is because socially, dance in itself is seen as an excess beyond essential activities. The woman who attracts and controls audience gaze and takes pleasure in receiving appreciation and expresses it openly is somebody the society is uneasy about. Her dancing body is seen as a tool for enticement and engagement in playing with the audience gaze. Strangely and paradoxically, the dancers who dance to make a living, who are otherwise looked down on as pollutants, are the only people who are condescendingly given the right to spend time to hone their body as their tool. Those bodies are seen as their instruments of enticement, their toolkits for their profession. Becoming the body from Natya Shastra. In Natya Shastra, we have been told how to receive bodies on display, how to read them, how to understand their caste affiliations and their social positions besides their performative principles. Bodies are consistently under scanner in this epic rule book of performance. Not only do men and women, but not only do men read women, but men read other men, women read men, and women read other women as well through this. It is about creating an universal text by which not only do people learn to enact characters, but they also learn to read and identify them. I have argued elsewhere that Natya Shastra is not only the key text on performativity and techniques, but has played a major role in creating, establishing, and reaffirming the social norms, values, and boundaries for a caste-segregated and discrimination-based society. The rules propagated through performative principles in Natya Shastra have also highlighted characteristic particularities of males as well as females from different strata of caste and class. The students of Indian classical dances, even today, are expected to submit themselves to codes of conduct propounded by this manual, as it remains the most important point of reference, almost as important as actually learning to dance. In this context, I have asked, who revitalized the social and cultural relevance of Natya Shastra for the Indian dance, eulogizing and glorifying the historical references to great past of Indian tradition? Who benefits from Natya Shastra being the rule book of gender and caste class behavior? In the Brahminical representation of Indian culture, references to Natya Shastra introduced a rigidity and exactness towards dance teaching and technique, almost completely restricted the scope of spontaneity that any art or artist takes for granted in the contemporary times. Next part is Parampara's living embodiment, bodies as narratives of the nation. The focus is a dance class for an Indian classical dance style, location, anywhere in the world, subjects, a class that has mostly girls and sometimes a few boys. The class starts and the teacher's instructions ring loud and clear, asking all students to start the basic exercises. The aim is to improve the body's ability to become a receiver of the techniques and skills for a particular style of dance. The same movements are done by all, yet it is perceived as sadhana, another reference to dedication, to learning the technique, and never considered as cloning. It does not matter that the movements register differently in different days in the same body, or that each body is a different receiver and unique synthesizer that places and stores these movements in the body repertoire that becomes available to the dancer in a very body-specific manner. The skill, the storage in memory, and the choice are three different agencies, but they work together to enable the dancer in whatever way she or he is trained, and just sometimes the way she wants to dance. At the time of learning, the master keeps a strict watch, watching and correcting minutest of movements, a hand gesture here, a faulty pose there. His or her role is to shape this body for future presentations. There is always an audience in mind. The word used over and over again is dedication. It is a dangerous word in the dancer's universe. It means you may work all your life with dedication, but some of your friends may be more successful. It also means that it is an open-ended system. You need to come with a sense of submission to the system of teaching, and it finally means you need to work hard without thinking of the result. Another word used to create a perfectly docile mind and an equally or more disciplined body is acceptance of the Guru Shishya Parampara, and of the responsibility to become the vessel to carrying the regional, national culture. All this is accompanied by the yet another problematic imposition. This is of becoming the guard against any misuse of cultural history. Thus, the body is never relaxed. The dancer bows down under the pressure of carrying all this information in the body. The body is constantly on guard against any unauthorized siphoning of the dance history that it carries or represents, and stands guard against itself, lest it becomes a traitor by starting to engage with its repertoire to move beyond the boundaries of grammar. This is the case for many classical dancers. Their bodies are trained without them knowing the history of dance. A string of mytho-histories perpetuate in absence of any update from the scholarship on the forms. The ingredients to preparation of such a body in dance is thus docility, acceptance, dedications, ambition. Only as much is prescribed as healthy by the Guru. And, of course, innumerable references to Natya Shastra. Thus, the training is not of dance grammars, but of becoming an ideal modern representative of the national culture, at once existing in two time zones. Apart from being a modern woman, the dancer then also has to be trained in a way so that she keeps the history of the nation alive in the body. For many young learners, this is beyond comprehension. Those who somehow start feeling fascinated by the history of India are happy finding space for themselves in it. This fascination lasts for a while. Sometimes the dreams are broken as competition gets to be too much. At other times, the realities of the outer world create resistive tendencies and are completely unacceptable in the world of classical dance training, and out goes the body of the protected confines of the dance space. In the constitution of this docile body, I see two ideas congregating in the way the body space and the nation space comes together. Deshpande's references to the nation space is established by his argument that nations inhabit a space that is simultaneously abstract, that is imagined and mental, and a concrete space, physical and geographical. That these contrary aspects of the nation space can be linked because of their common existence in and only in the social realm. Thus, these aspects materialize through different socialization processes that classical dance training takes on as co-curricular responsibilities. The deep impact in the body of such socio-culturally manipulative disciplines, coupled with the inherent competitive, ambitious approach, is life-defining for most dancers. In the perpetuation of this docility, the reference of the nation space is an important and inescapable one. This reference comes up time and again. It is the idea of the body space being prepared to fit into the nation space, as I said. after having disenfranchised the hereditary performers, that is one of the biggest examples stands till date for the hereditary performers, that is the Devadasis from the southern part of India and many other states. And we have had live debates in recently, and we know, many of us know that in 1947 the Devadasi Act came into being, which stopped the Devadasis from dancing in the temples, at the same time disenfranchising them in many manners, more than one, taking away their role as an artist, of course, putting them as prostitutes who were spoiling men's futures, and also stopping their economy. After having disenfranchised the hereditary performers completely and through a regional level, thoroughly at a regional level, through a detailed classicizing process of regional forms that they practiced by using complex governmental procedures, these classical dancers of the urban areas who took over these historical bodies' principal tools, that is the form that they danced, and renaming that as Bharatanatyam, they became the bearers of cultural history of India, disenfranchising and dislocating the Devadasi history completely till date. The classical dancers and the practitioners of these forms were given ample support by the state, and they in turn remain closely attached to the state apparatus even today by being available for all public events showcasing India. These performers are patronized by the state and therefore are almost forced to display their apolitical positions, of course. To come back to the current scenario, such bodies have been created by the state systematically over the years post-independence. The bodies that house and nurture the classical styles are in Kathakali, Bharatanatyam, Manipuri, Kathak, Odissi, Kuchipudi, Mohiniyattam and Satriya classical dance styles in India. They have no problem with legitimacy. The state stamps these bodies as legitimate occupants of a heterotopic imagination of the nation state. Each style has its well-defined territory and the few names of people who were the pioneers in the reforms and classicizing of the style. Thus, strangely, the history is a dual one, simultaneously claiming a past that is pre-colonial on one hand and a more recent one of a rescue mission by one or more reformers in the 20th century. In contrast, I would like to shortly mention the bodies, the working, entertaining bodies now. All through history, dance has acted as a way of making a living. Bringing all such dancing bodies together under one single category is a near impossible task because of the vast variety of embodiment this would put together. From super skilled dancers in the film industries in Bollywood to disenfranchised bodies of women performers in the fringes of the Adivasi and Dalit communities, the body stories bring to fore a range of negotiations around choice, necessity, and imposition, which help us to understand the vulnerabilities and agency that they procure for themselves. In case of the current essay, I consider occupation and entertainment as two important terms of reference to discuss these body categories. The vulnerable labor of the Bollywood dancers. Women dancers of Bollywood, all of us are fascinated by women's dance in Bollywood, and I may be trained in some, hi-fi Kathakali and Manipuri style. I still am excited seeing those dances. I cannot deny that. So women dancers of Bollywood could either be seen as powerful agent of control in their life and earning. Their dance to the Bollywood tunes are unmistakably marketed as hypersexualized crowd pullers. These songs and dances often actually claim to secure the box office success of the film. These dancing bodies are used blatantly to exert power of sensual control over the audience. The dancers' hypersexual images are seen as something that they put out for public consumption out of their own choice. Some researchers even see them as agents of change, whereby the women use their agency to choose the way their bodies project themselves. The counter-argument, of course, is that of a complete subjugation to a buyer's market, whereby these dancers can only hoard their bodily qualities and display them, while the choice of employing them remains entirely in the hand of the producers and directors. An extremely patriarchal and ruthless commercial setup which decides the fates of these bodies as the buyers. Discussing the vulnerability of Bollywood dancers, I say the body and the dance, coupled as two-in-one product, are consumerables sold together. An effect of this market-driven dance economy is that among the assets that are necessary to gain entry into the competitive world, the capacity to act or serious training in dance falls far down the list of must-haves. A further critical point is that in this economy, women actors have very short screen lives, with their market value proportional to the value of their objectified physical assets, instead of the women's capacity to self-regulate increasing in neoliberal times. There is a perpetual state of uncertainty about self-marketability and the fear of being replaceable, making women vulnerable to market forces controlled by industry producers and buyers. Theoretically, the words that resonate in this context are agency and dispossession. The word agency becomes problematic as the uncertainty of the market lays the total onus on the women to be able to remain in the state of a frozen physicality, whereby the body has to try and remain in the perfect shape desirable to get a buyer. Through it, though it sounds very similar, this is not about being literally and directly available for consumption as is in the requirement of sex work. The body in Bollywood industry also cannot overlook the requirement of remaining on a show window, just like a beautifully packaged consumable product. Thus, the body shapes or weights of the young women who groom their bodies to perfect ideally need not have and often do not possess a high quality of dance skill as is required in the dance academy of the world. Often they come without any training in dance. Instead, it is seen time and again that the choice of a woman dancer, actor is finalized because she has the perfect body and the looks. If she can dance, it is great. But if not, then something that looks like dance can be constructed out of the edited and photographic techniques and even bodily substitutes. As I have explained in my article, that Bollywood bodies are groomed according to international standards of beauty, but they are choreographed to suit the dual reception in the West as well as the East, and also the urban and the rural crowd. I will finish soon because I think you have gone very much over time, so I don't want to take your time. Yeah, I don't want to kind of make people impatient. At this point, one must foreground the fact that all these dancers think of dance as their work, with classical dancers being acknowledged as those who work for the enhancement of the image of the nation by embodying the history and cultural capital of the nation state. Their work is dedicated and most times termed as selfless. In comparison, the professional women dancers from Bollywood or from small local communities from different parts of India have no significance in the nation's Sanskritized lineage. All female bodies are in danger in a culture that sees women in a binary of domestic subjects as regular socially acceptable roles versus whores as aberrant and available temptations. The patriarchal practice have allotted regulated roles for women as available bodies for procreation, nurturing of children, and infirm and domestic and other work within the family. In contrast, these women who use their bodies for any kind of material benefit are identified as prostitutes in a somewhat blanket understanding of their bodily work or labor in any field outside the domestic realms. The dancing body that earns a living, therefore, is never able to escape the vulnerable space, where the labor of the dancing body can, without the slightest bit of provocation, be interpreted as a sexually implicated one, where dance and sexual favors are coupled together as work. Go to the last paragraph, let me see through. Yeah. So, summing up, the bodies speak. The bodies in public spaces speak. They are under scrutiny. The bodies of the classical dancers are under cultural monitoring for the responsibility they are always supposed to be carrying of aesthetic, cultural, and historical representation of the core, timeless idea of the Indian culture. For some time, Bollywood had remained happily separated and remarkably without any burden of any direct responsibility. In fact, they had actually enjoyed being deviant beyond expectations. But that too is a thing of the past. The neoliberal push towards standardization of saleable products worldwide now is a burden for Bollywood, whereby they have to produce standard bodies, especially women's bodies, in the commercial movies. Along with the other images of marketable products such as cars, clothes, houses, travel destinations, fitness facilities, and various other luxuries for the global Indian audience to feel familiar about the Bollywood themes and references, it is essential to have these kinds of familiarities in the way they view the bodies as well. The Bollywood presences of lead dancers, actors, and chorus ones are, of course, immortalized in their films for different kinds of reasons than the classical dancers. They do not do justice to the contributions of the bodies that make dance into a spectacular presence for the movies. Absence mar the body stories there too, as they ignore efforts behind the scene totally. Classical dancers, especially those who manage to scale the heights and remain at the top for a significant amount of time, get their body stories archived in the nation's prized archives. These archives, of course, are understandably only for those body stories that have been identified as worthy of acknowledgement in the nation's space. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Urmimala. This was one of the most provocative and very, very carefully crafted papers that I have come across. And as you were speaking, my mind was really churning, and I was taken back to my own days at Jawaharlal Nehru University, where I happened to do my master's, MPhil, and PhD. And in one of the classes that we had on the Natya Shastra, I made the mistake of critiquing the Natya Shastra. And I will not mention the name of my professor, but he was so irate because, you know, I went on to critique it at various levels because I said that it stood for, it was kind of underlining the way that society was gendered and based on caste and so on, and he had a definite problem with that, and he actually told me that, what are you doing studying literature? You should actually be a lawyer, the way you're picking things up with a pin. Well, I've come a long way since then, and it was ironical because that was the same time, Professor Urmimala, that one of the newspapers, I think it was Hindustan Times, had a series of writings critiquing the Natya Shastra, which made me feel extremely triumphant and validated my point. So today when you were speaking, I felt like, you know, things had come a full circle, and you'd said the things that I, as a young scholar, had once thought about. So, you know, one of the things that your paper, your essay really throws open, there are many things that it throws open, but I think for me, the big takeaway is the whole notion of choice. You know, whether it is a manual like the Natya Shastra, or whether it is the TRPs of today that decide how the dancing body must present itself, in a world which is talking about choices, in a world which is talking about democracy, the fact still remains so many centuries, you know, back and now, do we really have a choice about how to represent our dancing or non-dancing bodies? So that was a big takeaway for me. The other question, of course, is a larger question, not just about dance, but this whole question of art and artistic freedom. The fact is that, again, when we talk about art, we talk about artistic license, we talk about a certain immunity we ideally hope that artists have. But as you've proved so fabulously through your paper, do we really have that artistic immunity? Do we really? We all know what happens when we exercise a liberty and freedom in art, and you've spoken so well about the Devadasis and the disenfranchisement. So that again is a question that we really need to think about. If we call ourselves a democracy, then what are we doing to our artists and to art? And of course, the third big takeaway was about Bollywood and the fact that, as you said, and it's something that I keep wondering, because of course I'm not a dancer, much as I love dance and appreciate art, but the body of the woman dancer, also the male dancer, in Bollywood cinema is of course picture perfect, what is it called? Zero size figures or something like that. I can never attain it, that's why I avoid it. So it's supposed to be this perfect figure, but very often I wonder, does this person really know how to dance? So it's, these are questions that we need to think about. And there was a time when entering into cinema meant that you had to be proficient in all of the arts. You had to be a good singer, you had to be a good dancer, and gradually we are losing that, and the only focus is on how you look. Again, ironic, because we are living in a time when we talk about the fact that, oh no, we mustn't do any body shaming. Hello, we are doing body shaming because we are trying to put forward this perfect figure of the dancer, of the artist, of the actor, totally disregarding the skill and the talent of the actor. So there are just so many questions that you have opened up for us, and I know that this is a keynote and we are not allowed to ask questions at the keynote, but I still thought I'll ask you. Would you like? Okay. So I'd like to open the house out to maybe 2 questions, preferably by students, but I won't stop teachers from asking either. Anybody? Any question? Yes.
Thank you, Professor Urmimala, for such a enlightening discussion. I just had could not help but ponder. So, let's talk about the sexualization of sports as well, because now with the coming of all the Premier League, specifically IPL, we have also introduced cheerleaders. And interesting part about that is, so cheerleading has been very old and I think very outdated tradition in sports in America, yes, and some other places of course. But instead of receding away from it, it has been further pushed now to an extent that every team has its own cheerleaders and after parties and whatnot, and they have been glorified. Now, here the patrons, so to say, are actually the audience, which is of course mostly male-dominating audience. Since I mean,
may I ask you to be precise?
Yeah, sorry. So I just wanted to ask you regarding this idea of this concept of sexualization of the sports itself, along with capitalism where the patrons are still perceived to be men. How did the performance break away from this when everything is about capitalism today?
Thank you for asking this. And you see, I have had to cut out large portions from my essay, which is a very large one. I wanted to say that in Bollywood, in the kind of, say, let's take neoliberalism as a space and time, what it does to individual performing bodies. At one point in classical dance also, in the name of traditional training, we were training individuals. They were competing between each other. Two sisters in a class would be put in constant unease about kind of, you know, your sister, you will never be as good as your sister, was what was said. But that training is very different from how one survives in an independent body in today's world, where the bodies are actually kind of, they get a kind of a price on the basis of what they are ready to do. And the ready to do doesn't come directly from the audience. It is in anticipation of what the audience might want, right? So the way in which the people who are organizing the sports are handling it is that they are catering to a mindset which in turn generates a mindset and an expectation. So this is Bollywood's, you know, contribution in a way. Many of my film colleagues actually don't agree with me. They say that, oh, this is women's agency. I say, fine, but the agency is held where? They have no control over what kind of body will be sold. So they are constantly prepared for the kind of expectation. So it is right like that. What kind of dance? They could have done many other things. What is called cheerleading? Why are we sometimes taking certain terms as our wish list, and certain times we change when it suits us about tradition, transition, contemporary, modern? We make our own, right? So it is a problematic encounter of the contemporary, I would say.
I'd like to add to that, Shivam. You know, when I look back at my youth, which is a long time ago, I remember Steffi Graf and Martina Navratilova, and I remember the fact that Steffi Graf was given so much of mileage by the press because of the way she looked. And Martina Navratilova was you know, magnified, literally, even though she was such a brilliant, you know, player. And time and again, if you look at sports now, if you look at tennis, you look at any sports now, what is the attire of the player? How does the player dress her hair, in particular for women players? That seems to have become a great source of entertainment for the media and for the general public. So like I said, when we talk about evolution, I really don't know how far we have evolved, really.
Just one question, this new generation, Gen Z, you know, recently Jamila Jamil at BAFTA had spoken about the thinness of the bodies of the actresses that were, you know, and she even mentioned certain names, and she felt that, you know, it seemed that they would snap at any moment.
Yes.
So, so we call, and she called these bodies Ozempic bodies,
Yes.
drug-induced bodies.
Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, is this the new Gen Z body?
I think I invest a lot of hope in the Gen Z minds, not the bodies only, but I think that in this space, we need to think of what is the ideal, beyond what is the ideal, because it could be one kind of ideal that I have grown up with, and every day in JNU I have learned that I don't know the ultimate. I need to know, I need to regroup. I may reserve my good, bad, ugly, but I can't kind of judge and dismiss and not bring types. So we need to live in the real times. The danger is not there. The danger is in the way that the bodies are losing the calcium, the bone density, the way in which they are losing different kinds of muscular strength. They are losing the way to sustain through a day of rehearsal, a day of strong work. I can get this, at least 12 hours of rehearsal today, but my students, many of them will not. That is of concern.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Professor Urmimala, and I think this calls for a huge round of applause. We really couldn't have had a better start to this conference without this fabulous keynote. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you for being such a kind and patient audience.
Thank you, ma'am, for that insightful and thought-provoking keynote address. Your reflections have truly enriched our understanding and set a meaningful intellectual tone for that session that will follow. Tara Shima ma'am and Dr. Kailash Rani ma'am to felicitate Professor ma'am.
Together. Okay.
Thank you.
With this,